She looked around in panic. There was no time to clean or hide what she had seen. She ran out of the room, slamming the door shut and locking it quickly. Then she rushed to the sitting room, trying to steady her breathing, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She threw the key behind the sofa and sat down, forcing a smile as she wiped her tears. Moments later, Desmond entered the house, whistling softly. He looked tired but calm. "My wife," he said, smiling. "How was your day?" Bianca forced a weak smile. "It was fine," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Desmond studied her face closely. His smile faded. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she whispered, looking away. He moved closer, his sharp eyes watching her every move. "You look different. Did something happen while I was away?" Bianca shook her head quickly. "No, nothing happened." But Desmond's instincts were sharper than she knew. He could see the fear in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands fidgeted. He smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. He said. "All right then." He turned towards the corridor and walked past her. Bianca's heart jumped. What if he noticed the lock wasn't as he left it? What if he realized she had gone inside? Minutes felt like hours as she listened to his footsteps fade, then stop. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then she heard the sound of the key turning in the forbidden door again. Her stomach dropped. He had gone to the room. A long pause followed. Then, nothing. No sound, no movement, just quiet. Bianca sat frozen, her pulse racing wildly. Then she heard slow, deliberate footsteps coming back towards her. Desmond appeared at the doorway. His expression was calm, but his eyes were like cold fire. He walked to her and stood silently for a long time before speaking. "You opened the door, didn't you?" Bianca tried to speak, but no words came out. Her throat was dry. Desmond leaned closer, his voice low and chilling. "I told you never to open it. I warned you, Bianca." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Desmond, what did you do to her?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "What I always do. You shouldn't have seen it." Bianca's heart broke. She stumbled backward. "You're a monster," she cried. Desmond sighed. "No, my dear. I'm a provider. I feed the people. I give them what they crave. They eat, they smell, they thank me, but they never ask where the meat comes from." She shook her head violently, backing away. "Stay away from me." But Desmond only smiled, that same cold smile that once looked charming. "You shouldn't have looked, Bianca," he said softly. "Now you've made things difficult for me. And you know what happens to people who know my secrets?" Her breath hitched. "No, Desmond, please." He took a slow step closer, and Bianca realized she was next. The night was thick with fear. A storm gathered far beyond the hills, rumbling softly like an angry god. Inside the house, Bianca stood frozen in the middle of the sitting room, her eyes locked on Desmond's face. He looked calm, too calm, his smile stretching in a way that made her stomach twist. The air around them was tense, cold and heavy with death. "Desmond," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, listen to me. I won't tell anyone. I swear. I didn't mean to open the door. I was just looking for Nicole." Desmond tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was one of his next meat portions. Something to be measured, handled, and caught. "You broke my trust, Bianca," he said slowly. "You weren't supposed to see that part of me." "I didn't see anything," she lied quickly, taking a small step backward. "I just saw her phone, that's all." He chuckled softly, the sound deep and cold. "Her phone?" Steps closer, his shadow swallowing hers. "You think I don't know when someone opens my room?" I felt it the moment the air changed in there. I could smell your fear. Bianca's heart pounded so hard she thought it would explode. She kept retreating until her back hit the wall. "Desmond, please," she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "We've been together for years. I'm your wife. I've stood by you. Please don't hurt me." Desmond's eyes softened for a second, almost like he remembered what love felt like. But then, something darker replaced it. "You should have stayed ignorant," he said. "You were happier that way." He turned around and walked towards the kitchen, his movements calm and deliberate. Bianca stood there, too afraid to move. Then she heard the metallic sound, the scrape of a knife being lifted from the rack. That sound tore through her body. Without thinking, she ran towards the door, her wrapper flying as her bare feet slapped against the cold floor. But Desmond was faster than she thought. He grabbed her by the arm and pulled her back hard. She screamed, trying to break free, kicking and hitting him. "Let me go, Desmond, please." "Stop shouting," he hissed, tightening his grip. "You'll make this harder for both of us." Bianca bit his hand. He rolled in pain, pushing her away. She stumbled, fell to the ground, and crawled towards the back door. She grabbed the handle, but it was locked from the outside. She banged it desperately. "Help! Somebody help me!" But their house was far from the main road. No one could hear her cries. Desmond stood behind her, breathing heavily. Blood trickled from the bite on his hand. He wiped it on his shirt, then sighed deeply. "You always made me proud, Bianca," he said quietly. "You never asked questions. You trusted me. That's why I kept you safe." But now, he raised the knife. Bianca turned quickly and grabbed the stool, swinging it with all her strength. It hit him across the face, and he stumbled backward with a grunt. She didn't wait. She ran towards the sitting room, her heart slamming in her chest. She needed to get out. She needed to leave. But before she could reach the door, Desmond's hand caught her wrapper again. He pulled hard, dragging her to the ground. The knife clattered beside them as they struggled. She screamed, kicked, and scratched, but he was stronger. "Stop fighting me," he growled. "No," she cried, grabbing a broken piece of glass from the floor and slashing at him. The glass caught his hand, and he rolled again. Her mind raced. She looked across wildly, searching for anything to help her. Her eyes landed on the key she had thrown earlier behind the sofa. Without thinking, she crawled quickly and grabbed it. Then she sprinted towards the forbidden room. Desmond was right behind her, his footsteps loud, his breath heavy. "Don't you dare," he shouted. But Bianca had already opened the door and dashed inside. She slammed it shut, locking it from within. She leaned against the door, shaking. The air inside was freezing, but she didn't care. She was safe for now. Desmond banged the door furiously. "Open it, Bianca. You can't hide forever." She cried silently, clutching the key tightly. Then her eyes moved towards the freezer. Something in her broke again. She walked towards it slowly, sobbing, whispering Nicole's name. She opened the lid one more time and looked at the packages inside. Neat, cold, and lifeless. She touched one of them gently, tears dropping on the plastic. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have protected you." Outside, Desmond's voice grew calmer. "Bianca, open the door. I'm not angry anymore. I forgive you. Let's talk." His voice was gentle, almost loving, but she knew it was a lie. He only wanted her to open the door. She backed away quietly, her eyes darting around for anything she could use as a weapon. That was when she noticed a small iron rod leaning by the wall. She picked it up and held it tightly, her body trembling. Minutes passed, the banging stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Was he gone or waiting? She pressed her ear to the door, trying to listen. Nothing. Carefully, she turned the key and opened the door slightly. The corridor was empty. She stepped out slowly, holding the iron rod in one hand, ready to strike. The lights flickered once, then went off completely. The house sank into darkness. "Desmond," she called her softly. No reply. She moved quietly towards the sitting room, her eyes adjusting to the dim moonlight. Everything looked the same, except the knife was no longer on the floor. Her stomach turned. Then she heard it, a faint whisper behind her ear. "You shouldn't have come out." Before she could scream, a hand grabbed her from behind and pulled her backward. She dropped the iron rod as Desmond's arm locked around her neck. She kicked, scratched, and grabbed for air, but his grip was strong. He whispered into her ear, his breath cold. "You should have just stayed as my wife. Now, you'll be my product." Bianca clawed at his arm, her vision fading. With one last burst of strength, she twisted her head and beat his shoulder hard. He groaned and loosened his grip for a split second, enough for her to break free. She ran towards the door again, screaming with everything left in her. "Help! Somebody help me!" But before she could reach the handle, he caught her by the hair and slammed her head against the wall. The wall spun, her knees gave way, and she fell. Desmond stood over her, breathing hard. His shirt was torn, his face bleeding, his eyes burned with fury. "I told you, Bianca," he said, his voice shaking. "You shouldn't have looked." She looked up at him through her tears, whispering, God will punish you, Desmond. He raised the knife slowly. Maybe, but not tonight. It fell silent. The rain outside began to pour, washing away the night sounds, covering the scream that never reached the street. When morning came, the compound was quiet again. The house was spotless, just like before. The forbidden room was locked. The freezer hummed softly, and among the new packages stacked neatly inside, one nylon had a new label, written in fresh ink. It read, Bianca. The next morning was calm and bright, but beneath the sun's golden warmth, the neighborhood carried a quiet unease. The birds chirped. The breeze moved slowly, yet something about Desmond's house felt wrong. Too silent, too clean, too empty. Nicole's younger sister, Ngozi, had been calling her since dawn. No answer. She had texted, called, and even sent voice notes. Nicole never ignored her calls, not even when she was angry. Ngozi frowned and decided to stop by the house. Maybe she left her phone on silent again, she thought. When she arrived, the compound gate was open, swinging slightly with the morning wind. That was strange. Desmond's gate was always locked. Ngozi stepped inside slowly. Nicole, she called. Auntie Bianca, anybody home? Silence. Her eyes scanned the compound. Everything looked fine. The flowers were trimmed, the chairs neatly arranged, but as she approached the front door, a strong smell hit her. It wasn't perfume or food. It was something heavier, something that made her stomach turn. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open. The sitting room was spotless, too spotless. There was no sign of breakfast, no sound of movement, no trace of life. The air was heavy with the same strange odor. Hello? She said again, taking a step inside. Her heart started racing when she saw something on the floor, a woman's earring. She bent to pick it up. It was gold with a small green stone. She recognized it instantly. It was Bianca's. As his throat went dry, something was terribly wrong. She pulled out her phone and called Bianca's number. It rang once, twice, and then stopped. She could hear the faint vibration from somewhere in the house. Her eyes darted around. The sound was coming from down the hallway. She followed it slowly, her steps carefully. The closer she got, the stronger the smell became. It wasn't just strange, it was foul, rotten, unnatural. Her phone call ended, and the silence made her chest tighten. She stopped in front of a door, the forbidden room. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle. Nicole, she whispered, even though a part of her already knew she wouldn't answer. She pushed the door open. Cold air spilled out immediately, brushing her skin like ghostly fingers. The room was dark, with one dim bulb flickering weakly above. A large freezer sat in the corner, humming quietly. The walls were lined with strange metal hooks and containers she didn't recognize. Her breath came in short gaps. Then she saw it, Bianca's phone lying on the table beside a small notepad. The screen was cracked, and next to it was a drop of dried blood. Ngozi's knees shook. What? What happened there? She whispered. She looked at the freezer. Her heart told her not to open it. But curiosity, terrified curiosity, pulled her closer. She grabbed the lid and lifted it. The moment she saw what was inside, she screamed. There were packages, neatly sealed nylons, labeled with names she knew. One said Nicole, another Bianca, and others had names of people who had gone missing in the neighborhood over the past few months. Ngozi stumbled backward, dropping her phone. Her body shook uncontrollably. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" Then she heard a soft sound behind her, a door creaking open. "Who are you?" a voice said calmly. She froze. Slowly, she turned around. Desmond stood there, dressed neatly in a clean shirt and trousers, his face calm, his eyes tired. He was holding a small cup of coffee like it was a normal morning. "Ngozi," he said softly, "you shouldn't have come." She stared at him, her lips trembling. "What did you do to them?" He sighed, looking at the floor. They were too curious. Curiosity ruins everything. "You killed them?" she cried. "You killed your own wife? And Nicole?" He didn't answer. Instead, he set his coffee down on the table and moved closer. "Now you know my secret, and that means..." Before he could finish, Ngozi grabbed the notepad on the table and threw it at him. He flinched, and she used the moment to run. She dashed out of the room, screaming for help, her heart beating so fast it felt like fire in her chest. Help! Somebody help me! Desmond's footsteps thundered behind her. Come back here! She reached the front door, but the latch jammed. Her hand shook as she fought with it, tears blurring her eyes. Just as Desmond reached out to grab her, a loud bang echoed from outside. The compound gate slammed open. 2 policemen stormed in, guns raised. Freeze! One of them shouted. Desmond stopped in his tracks, his face twisting in confusion. Ngozi fell to the ground, sobbing. The officers moved quickly, forcing Desmond to the floor. One of them recognized Ngozi. She had called emergency service while running, leaving the line open so they could trace the location. As they handcuffed Desmond, one of the officers looked around the sitting room and frowned. Something smells bad, he said. Ngozi pointed weakly towards the room. In there, the freezer. The officers entered. When they came back out, their faces were pale, eyes wide in horror. One, he whispered, he's been cutting people up. Desmond sat on the floor, smiling faintly. They all wanted something from me, he said quietly. All came too close. The officers dragged him out, and as he passed Ngozi, he whispered, tell them, Bianca wanted to leave me. I couldn't let her. Ngozi screamed and spat at him as they shoved him into the police truck. Later that day, the news spread across the neighborhood. A respected businessman arrested for serial killings. Neighbors gathered outside the house, whispering in disbelief. Ngozi stood by the police tape, watching them carry out the freezer. Her body trembled, her heart broken. She couldn't believe her sister's best friend and her husband were gone like that. One of the detectives came to her and said softly, you saved many lives today. If you hadn't called, he would have killed again. Ngozi nodded slowly, tears falling. I just wish I came sooner. The detective placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sometimes evil hides behind the biggest smiles. As they drove Desmond away, he sat in the backseat, still smiling faintly. Through the window, his eyes caught Ngozi's for a moment, and she felt a chill run down her spine. He mouthed 2 words silently, not over. The police van disappeared down the road, and somewhere deep in the locked freezer being moved to the forensic lab, a faint metallic sound echoed, like something tapping from inside the eyes. The wind blew softly across the compound, carrying a whisper no one could quite explain.